Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm doing a video on my thoughts on the Doctor Who Series 11 trailer. Got notes here, quite a lot more than last time as well, and I really feel like the last video, teaser trailery thing I did, / video on that was not great. And that, I think, it's weird to think that from that to this I'm a lot more happier. And positive and that, but I still am urging on sort of cautiously optimistic, which I guess the two contradict each other because, being cautious usually isn't seen with being positive or negative, but I think I try and do that with most things in life, because I've been burnt before, both in personal life and just generally with TV shows and film and media products and whatnot, just being like, yes, this will be the best thing ever, and then it's not, and then vice versa as well, being like, this is going to be absolute shit, and then it's actually really, really good. But yeah, so I'm going to go through the positives, what I'm happy with, and explain what it is and why, for all these, but then mixed as well, so sort of 50-50 ones, and then the bad, the things that I don't like, and that. I mean, moving forward, this could change, obviously, between now and the time that we get closer to it being eventually released. But yeah, I mean, it's weird to think that the show is changing so drastically. Like, in my head, I can't quite process it all. Like, in my head, I'm still like, but Capaldi, right? Because I've got, like, a photo of him right opposite where the camera is, and that on my stand with my TV stand, and he's like signed sort of thing and that, and yeah, it's really weird because it's like in my head I'm like, it's still Pete Capaldi, right, but it's not, and it's not Stephen, it's not, it's very strange really. I need more time to process it, but hopefully between now and the time that we get the show back, the series, I'll have been able to process everything. Positives, it's fresh and new. The trailer definitely articulates that, in a lot of different other characteristics and things that I'll be talking about in a minute. For example, the new interesting direction as well for the show, and I think the fresh and newness is needed probably more now than ever after the continuity heavy, Stephen Moffat era. You only have to think of some of that my friend Michael said that when I was last at his, about the fact that, the Series 9 opener was, I enjoyed it and that, but what happens if you never knew who, or what he said, what Genesis of the Daleks is, then you wouldn't have that sort of, it wouldn't have the same impact. But then I was really thinking about it, and I'm like, wait, but what happens if you'd started with Matt Smith's era, sort of a Doctor before? He never had Davros in his run. This is the first time you've ever seen Davros as a character, and then they're also then putting in the baggage of a 1974 story as well. Good in theory and concept, but in execution, not great, because you're isolating people who will eventually be, or should be, people who you're aiming the show at. So yeah, I think it's fresh and new because it needs to be. Not that maybe it... I don't know, it's weird. It's like, part of me is like, should it be, though, this new and fresh? I don't know, like, I have very torn sort of feelings towards that on a personal level, but it's probably needed because, again, yeah, I think that is probably why, not only the age thing of like Capaldi, but also the age thing, but also the fact that he's the age thing, and also the ratings and the continuity heaviness and that. But yeah, it's probably why it went downhill, but then it's gonna hopefully go back uphill in terms of viewing figures because of the fresh new take. Interesting direction throughout the trailer, different shots, different stuff of like her with the like massive ass blowtorch thing, and that, and in that cool apron thing in the sort of workshop place from in Sheffield apparently, which is pretty cool as well, of interesting shots of like alien planets with the like green sort of background and what looks like a blown up sort of the back engine bit of maybe a spaceship that's crashed, as well as them going up this steep hill, which then makes me think that the next shot will be of them on like that platform, and all four of them are there's like a silhouette bit of all four of them, and they're all looking out at like this what is it, a desert islandy thing, but then there's water and that it looks like this cool ancient ruins sort of thing, which looks interesting to me. As I say, interesting direction. Lots of running, like there's a distinctive bit where she's running down a corridor using the Sonic. I'll get into that in a minute or later, if that doesn't already tell you what I think of that, but unfortunately, lots of running, yeah, so running down corridors, which is always great. I really like the tagline of "The Universe is Calling." I think it's really sort of new and fresh, and I think it's a really good sort of simplistic and effective way of sort of saying, come watch this show, you know, in such a Doctor Who-y, you know, sci-fi way, you know, and I like that. The universe is calling, you know, it's, you know, the TARDIS is a telephone box, makes sense logically. I like what she's saying throughout the video as well, like, and that, like, it really gives me sort of makes me, when I was unsure of her as the Doctor and whole first female Doctor thing, and her as an actor I've not really seen besides in Attack the Block, and even then she's like a side character anyway. Don't know, as I say, her background and portfolio, so and/or IMDb, so her saying these things in such a confident, sort of, you know, childlike, for lack of a better term, as creepy as this sounds, probably innocent way of you know, oh, brilliant, you know, what was it, the line, like, you know, if I asked nicely, would you be my friends, you know, like, I could imagine this, me being a kid, really being finding this really appealing, even, you know, because, you know, the people who, let's be honest, watch Doctor Who are probably people who don't have lots of friends, or at least when they're kids anyway, or maybe find it difficult to make friends even, should I say. And, you know, her saying that is so nice, and then to the companions, and they're all doing their own stuff and that, but yeah, I like the tagline and/or the stuff she's saying go cohesively nicely together, I think, you know. Her mission statement in that, what she's saying is more like personal to like just those three people probably, and then the universe is calling is more like widening it to anyone, you know, from 8 years old to 50 or 85 and anywhere in between, both race, age, gender, you know, whatever, you know, which is great. The things that I feel mixed about are the amount of companions, you know. I'm getting a real Peter Davison vibes off this, which wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that, like, it didn't work then, really. The closest we've got to in the modern series of this is probably Amy and Rory, and even then, I often forgot Rory was even there. I mean, he kept dying a bunch and being rewritten out of time anyway, so I think Stephen Moffat probably forgot he was even there. And then obviously 62, but the show was so vastly different, or television was so vastly different then that, you know, it just worked because of the format of the television, you know, then. There's no real character traits, you know, of like any of the characters, you know, besides what the Doctor's saying. No one actually says anything in the trailer, which I thought was quite odd. I had quite a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Actually, that's a lie. The Doctor does say, you know, like, what is it? Well, this is going to be fun then, isn't it? Or something akin to that right at the end. And besides that, I don't think anyone else says anything. But she's overlaying most of the other bits and pieces anyway of the clip anyway, so, you know, it'd have been cool to hear one of the other companions say something else, I think. Or they very rarely do say anything, like, maybe just right at the beginning, maybe, I don't know, I can't quite remember, but, and then there's no monsters either, which is quite, again, I had a very knee-jerk reaction. I'm mixed about, because, you know, it's supposed to be new and fresh, and I've watched the Comic-Con panel to know that it's supposed to be all new monsters and new stuff, but I would have liked to see one or two of them. I don't think that's too much to ask for, but I don't know. I mean, apparently Chris Chibnall and the other people behind the scenes have said that there's no recurring monsters, no golden oldies for lack of a better term, no Ice Warriors, Silurians, Sea Devils, Dalek, Cybermen, Master, you know, none of that, you know, so it really is a new clean slate, which is interesting because we haven't had that since probably, I would say, truly since probably Matt Smith's first series back in 2010, which is, you know, that's nearly almost 10 years ago now, almost, oh, we're close to nearly 10 years from then, which is really scary to think of. And then the next thing that I'm not mixed about, I'm just sort of, this is more just a blank statement that I put in the mixed feelings pile. Her being in pain, and then I've just put, you know, it could be a psychic attack, maybe some sort of alien attacking her, you know, she's there like, ah, and that in that one shot, like, she's leaning over and she's like, ow, and that, I've seen enough classic Doctor Who and Big Finish audios to know that there's weird alien parasite-y worm things that always seem to attack people psychically. Maybe that was it. I'd say maybe regenerational, but for the fact that in that shot she seems to be in a much later episode, but then in the first bit where she's like leaning on that bed and or couch thing, she's like, oh my god, and seems to be almost having a heart attack. She's not, she seems to be in the same sort of costume as when she's in episode 1, presumably in Sheffield and in that sort of workshop place, so I don't know, maybe it could be regenerational. And also with the one where she's like, though there's no gold regenerational effect, so I'm thinking it's something else. But it could be regenerational, I don't know. And finally, onto the bad pile, unfortunately. What was it? There's no release date. That has really cheesed me off. Like, September, October, great, but when specifically? I want a release date. I really don't like the new Sonic. Sorry, I just don't. I like the way, I love the idea of her building her own Sonic. I love that. But because of the context of that, I feel like it should be just a temporary one, you know, like the TARDIS eventually gives her a new one maybe, or she upgrades it or something, or it gets destroyed so she has to make another one, or I don't know, just something else, because I really don't like the new Sonic. It's, yeah, it looks like it's broken already, but then again they can always use the excuse of, well, she made it herself. But the music, I mean, they made a big deal about, oh, we've got a new musical composer who isn't obviously Murray Gold because he's left, but then this trailer felt flat in terms of the music for me personally, although bearing in mind, disclaimer time here folks, I'm not a massive fan of music and I don't like, well, I don't dislike it, I just don't know a lot about it, and I'm not massively passionate about it, so please don't tell me a new one about that. But basically it felt flat and dull in terms of the music, like nothing too interesting, maybe some just incidental music, if that's the right terminology, you know, just some basic generic action adventure music. So other format changes, such as, and then I just put / no two-parters, which I'm really upset about, and I don't really like, but I get why they're probably doing that, because again, there is that sort of, we want it to be fresh and new, and I mean, that's what Chris Chibnall's sort of going for, and out of the 10 episodes we're getting, 4 of them are Earth-based, so the setting alone will be very interconnected in those ones, even though there'll be 4 different stories, supposedly. 3 space stories, so if you did a 2-parter there, then there'd only be 1 2-parter and a single one set in the future in space, and then the same with the historicals, and then 3 historicals. So, I guess by the way it's been set out, Series 11, you just couldn't do 2-parters, even if Chris Chibnall wanted to, it just wouldn't work, I guess. I mean, it'd be boring having 2-parters set on Earth. But then, as I just said, the other ones would be a standalone and a 2-parter, and it just wouldn't work, I don't think, either. And then just generally too many changes to the show behind the scenes, you know, in terms of the writers and directors, and as I say, everything's just so new that I think it might get a lot of new fans, but could might unfortunately lose a lot of older fans who have liked the show for a lot longer, and it's balancing the two. I think it's I think with Doctor Who, it's a 55-year-old show. We need new fans for sure, because the old fans are going to be around forever, but it's that sort of middle ground, finding that balance, whatever that is, of the two, because you can't have new fans without the old, really, you know, because at the end, think about it, Russell and Stephen and Mark Gatiss and, you know, Neil Gaiman and Paul Cornell and everyone who's ever worked on the show, you know, from Nick Briggs to, as I say, Stephen Moffat and everyone in between, is a fan, a long-term fan, and grew up with it. But then you could argue, well, at some point they weren't fans and they were, you know, new fans, and I guess, but now there's this legacy and this sort of continuity and, yeah, legacy basically, that probably does make it difficult to watch the show. So it's definitely bold and it's definitely daring, I think, of Chris Chibnall to make the show new again. I think obviously bringing it back in 2005, they needed to do that, otherwise there'd be no point in them bringing it back. But yeah, it's probably, as I say, probably biggest change since 2010 in the new series anyway, and yeah, I mean, a lot of the time in the panel, in the big long BBC America panel they had with Chris Chibnall, producery person, and Jodie Whittaker and the two new companions, they'd said something about, like, well, bearing in mind, like, you know, 1974, Tom Baker's first season really didn't have a lot of tie-ins to the classic series and whatnot gone before it, and that's considered a golden age. So, you know, or as is the 1970s as a whole, actually, really, when you think about it, you know, Silurians, Axons, the Master, Omega, Zygons, Wirren, Vok robots, you know, not a whole lot of reusing stuff. So if we're going to get anything close to the 72, great, but otherwise, don't know. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be good moving forward. And yeah, I enjoyed the trailer. There's some Westworld vibes in there with the horses and stuff, and bits and pieces there. There's a lot of shots in a forest, but contrast with alien planets and desert places, and then places like a workshop, and then you've got the distinctive, you know, corridors. Varied is definitely one thing to say about the trailer, and then just fun as well. So yeah, hopefully it's good. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate and subscribe. Please do comment what your thoughts are below about the trailer. Thanks.